strategic metals, it's not a sort of academic or scientific term, but strategic metals are, well, let's say the U.S. Geological Survey lists about 45, maybe 50 metals, which are strategic and critical to all nations, not just North America, but to all nations' economic prosperity and increasingly military capabilities.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Interesting guest today. You know, when we talk about metals on this show, we're usually talking about gold, silver, to a lesser degree, platinum. You even mentioned rhodium once in a while. But the person you're about to hear from, Lewis O'Connor, the website strategicmetalsinvest.com, seen since 2020. Lou, welcome to the show. We've seen 116% return, not quite as good as gold and silver. Well, a little better than silver, a little less than gold. What is a strategic metal? How do you own them, especially rare earths? I don't really have storage facilities here for lithium, and it's highly combustible in its native form. And I wouldn't know what to do with rare earths other than to make them into magnets, I think. There's nothing else I know what to do. How do you play this market?
Okay, so I guess I'll give you the definition first, because there probably are a few definitions. Strategic metals, it's not a sort of academic or scientific term, but strategic metals are, well, let's say the U.S. Geological Survey lists about 45, maybe 50 metals, which are strategic and critical to all nations, not just North America, but to all nations' economic prosperity and increasingly military capabilities. So the metals we'll talk today about are more of a subdivision of those. So the first thing people should know about us, Kerry, is you rightly pointed out, the only end buyer or end user for these raw materials are Tesla or Apple or U.S. Department of Defense, and ordinary civilians sort of have no way of storing them safely and stuff like that. So the first thing people should know about us is that our core business is we're an industry supplier of strategic metals. So we're in business on that side since 1999. We're 25 years in business. So 85% of our business activities, we're based in Europe. I'm in Ireland at the moment, but our main office is in Frankfurt in Germany. And we have a logistics distribution platform there where we buy metals, mostly from China at the moment, and we resell them to 4,000 different clients in 74 different countries. So manufacturers, industry buyers. We're also a tier one supplier to quite a few blue chip companies. So that's our core business. And if that wasn't our core business, we'd have no business doing what I'm about to discuss with you today, which is we have a side business, or as you guys in America call a side hustle, although it's a little bit bigger than that now. Our side hustle is we invite private investors to participate in the supply chain. And out of that 45 or 50, there's only about 8 or 10 that are relevant as physical assets to private investors. And I'll talk about any of them if you want today, and I'll tell you what the characteristics are of what determines them. How do they get on the list to being relevant as a physical asset? But yeah, just to cover your point, you said, look, there's no point in you or I having lithium, in fact, I don't even know if the U.S. Customs would allow you imported because they all have, civilian and military applications. But yeah, our private investors buy the raw materials from us. They physically own them, but we recommend they store them in our sister company, which is Metlock, which is a storage facility that has the largest inventory of rare earths anywhere outside of China. And when our clients have storage there, means they also have access to our more than 4,000 clients around the globe when they're ready to liquidate.
Got it. All right. So, tell us what these metals are and why they're worth so much.
Okay, so gallium, germanium, indium, rhenium, those are some of the technology metals. Rare earths, dysprosium, neodymium, praseodymium. Neodymium, they have very, very unique qualities. Neodymium can hold 1,300 times its own weight independently. So they're conductors, they're semiconductors. They can withstand very, very high temperatures. So they have multiple applications. I suppose you could say they're the upstream raw materials that ultimately become trillions of dollars in downstream GDP. Tesla need them, Apple need them, Department of Defense needs them, aviation, space technology. Look, we live, funny enough, actually, somebody recently said that in Europe, and this was the president of the European Union, said that rare earths are fast becoming as important, right, maybe even more important than oil and gas. So as we pivot from oil to metals, rare earths are the new frontline in geopolitical decisions. I mean, proof of that is, President Trump mentioned critical rare earth minerals in Ukraine. Greenland is a big lump of ice, so the main interest there are resources as well. So, and they're very, very important, and they're now being used as leverage in national security interests.
Right. Okay. So I kind of get that, and it's kind of like that thing from Avatar, unobtainium, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what kind of vehicle do you have for investing in these things?
So we invite private investors to own, just like same paradigm as gold and silver. They can physically own the raw materials. Our minimum investment is only $10,000. So we recommend people start small, build a position over time, learn about, the raw materials and which ones are defense metals, which are energy transition, which are aviation. And we'll help people get educated in that regard. And we recommend, if I can speak completely sort of frank and be sincere with you, Kerry, we don't have 10 different offers. We don't also offer crypto or agriculture or ATM.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the reason I'm saying that is we only know one business, and that's we're an industry supplier. So we have a unique, if you will, a winning as well investment strategy. And what we like to do is get people educated and tell them what the strategy is. And once they have that strategy, if they'd like to come on board, do. But if they're not aligned with the strategy, then don't. We don't want day traders, or we don't want people coming in thinking they're going to make, millions of dollars in 6 months or 8 months. We recommend a hold of a minimum 3 years, 5 years, even longer. And we recommend diversifying your purchase. So you're not just invested in defense, you're invested in all modern technology, aviation, medical devices, you name it.
All right. And but these metals really aren't that rare. It's just that China has basically monopolized the entire, the entire market for them.
Correct. China has an unrivaled dominance, and you are right. Despite the name, they're not always that rare. Some of them, there's 17 rare earths, and there's only 4 that we offer to private investors. So those are the ones. I'll tell you what the characteristics are. One is diversification. We only offer the metals that actually have the most applications in manufacturing today. 2, which ones are in the most demand? Right at the moment, obviously, artificial intelligence, everybody's talking about. AI runs on data, but it relies on rare earths for the magnets and the sensors, the cooling systems, also the computer chips, I should say. So we look at which ones, have the most applications and are in the most demand. We also look which ones are the rarest, which ones are the least in production. Hafnium is a good example. There's only 70 to 90 tons of hafnium produced a year, which you could sort of fit on the back of a small truck. But here's where it gets interesting. These rare materials, they do not occur naturally in the Earth's crust. They're always a byproduct of another raw material. So hafnium is a byproduct of zirconium mining. For every 50 tons of zirconium, you get 1 ton of hafnium. That's why China sort of has this sort of dominance at the moment. And the last thing is that particular reason, which is where is their heavy sort of localized production, where is their supply concentration risk? And those are the four characteristics that determine that.
Okay. So small markets, mostly dominated by China, but the potential exists, and it's being worked on now to actually build additional capacity throughout the world. How long is that going to take?
Well, the average, I'm obviously I know your audience is US, so I'll give you some US examples. The average time from maiden discovery to production in America recently for a mine is 29 years. So even though, there's MP minerals, I should say, in California, they produce rare earths, but at the moment they still have to sell most of their raw materials to China for processing. So it's not the fact, as you pointed out earlier, that there's, for example, there's 500,000 abandoned coal mines in the US that have mine tailings. There's rare earths there, but the engineering expertise, the human capital doesn't exist in Europe or the US to process these materials. They have to be extracted, they have to be separated, and they have to be remetallized. It's more of a metallurgical process than a mining process to purity levels of, 99.999%, that could be in the engine of an F-35 jet or a nuclear sub or whatever. So China's about a generation ahead of Europe and the rest of the world in terms of the metallurgical process. And I'd imagine, you're right, there's the will is there now, the political will is there now to wean our dependence off China, but that's going to take time. It didn't happen overnight, and it'll take a bit of time to remedy.
Right. Now, I've read that even though China is attempting to control these markets, there's a huge smuggling market where they smuggle the rare earths out of China. Is that correct?
Yes. China has certainly cleaned up the market a lot. I mean, they've really consolidated it since the 1980s. But yeah, there's, there at one point there were rogue mines, even that's sort of non-existent. But yeah, they're a valuable commodity, and anything that would exist in the normal sort of trade and stuff exists with this.
Okay. All right. So you got to tell us where we find you, Lou, how we connect with you on the web.
Sure. Our website is www.strategicmetalsinvest.com. And if somebody wants to email me direct and mention your name, Kerry, it's Louis, Louis, @strategicmetalsinvest.com, and I'll be sure to answer them.
All right. And you'll find a link in the show notes for this interview that will take you to Lou's site. And while you're there, it's on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. We just asked that you sign up for a free newsletter. Take a look at the book that we're offering, The World According to Martin Armstrong, Conversations with the Master Forecaster. Lou, appreciate you coming on. And it's going to be interesting to watch, see how this whole thing unfolds. And we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Kerry.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.